And here's the scary part. When you really think about it, there must be so many people that are just sitting on a loss because they can't afford to take that loss. And that is the real ticking time bomb that nobody really knows about, but is still there. Even the mainstream media is finally admitting how much people are losing in the housing market. And we're going to get into this. I cannot believe, of all places, this comes from the Toronto Star, but a very interesting article that shows a huge loss. So they bought cottages during the pandemic real estate rush. Now they're losing up to $365,000 when they sell. Cottage properties are sitting with no offers, as experts say the market is stagnant and oversupplied. Lake Scugog, I'm probably pronouncing that completely wrong, a popular lake in the sought-after Kawartha Lakes region, has long been a home to beautiful recreational properties on the waterfront. In January 2022, the home sold for $1.1 million, a stretch for the 1,100 square feet home. Yeah, you're telling me 1,100 square feet for 1.1 million. I mean, that's $100,000 per 100 square feet. That's absolutely mind-blowing. The following summer, the property was relisted, but there were no takers. Funny that. After a series of price reductions, it finally sold for $735,000 last April, a whopping $365,000 loss in just 3 years. Yeah, so just think about that. That's a 33% nominal loss, and we'll go back over to our calculation here on Gemini, and basically what you can see is the compounded inflation rate over that time is around 19%. Let's just call it 20% to make the math real easy, and then we can go over here, and then we know because of this that that's a 53% real loss. That's absolutely crazy, and that's a 33% nominal loss. But again, it's just showing you what's happening. And it gets really even worse because it tells you what happened here, which we knew, which is a flood of buyers from cities pocketed recreational properties in cottage country and all over the province, pushing prices to unseen heights. Now, after interest rates doubled, those pandemic buyers are trying to offload their properties, and many are struggling to break even. During the pandemic, it was basically free money, and it was easier to qualify for a secondary property. This is the fallout of that initial rush into the cottage market. And you take a look at this chart here, and this is money losers. So it's the percentage of properties purchased between 2022 and 2023 that sold for a loss 2022 to 2024 for Southern Ontario regions. And you can see here, it's pretty staggering the percentages of losses that people are taking. And here's the scary part. When you really think about it, there must be so many people that are just sitting on a loss because they can't afford to take that loss. And that is the real ticking time bomb that nobody really knows about, but is still there. So all these people, you know, maybe it was a power of sale, maybe it wasn't, but there is a ton of people that are sitting on losses, hoping the market recovers, and it's not gonna fucking happen. I hate to tell them. They are in a dire situation, and it is gonna lead to further downward pressure in the real estate market. And I think that is obvious. And you know, it's kind of crazy because he says here, to sell in the current market, sellers have to price the property just right, he said. That can mean difficult conversations between realtor and seller, as the seller oftentimes has a bigger price tag in their head. The proposed price can be a shock, he said, but also a reality check of how much the market has changed. And that just goes to show that, again, from this anecdotal article that we have here, we know that okay, sellers are still in denial. They're not really fearful, otherwise they'd be rushing to the market and they wouldn't care the price. They'd just be like, sell it, I need to unload this before the market gets worse. Then you know you're in that fear stage. So still, we are still in the denial stage here in 2025, just as John Flynn said on the interview that we did the other week. So it just goes to show what's really going on there. And now I wanted to show you this as well, because this is in Cornwall in the UK. And again, you're seeing the exact same thing happen where demand for second homes in a place that boomed during the pandemic has fallen off a cliff. So this didn't just happen in the UK, it happened in the United States, it's happened all over the world. And what people don't realize is the reason why this happened is because many of the same actions that the government had and the central banks had were pretty much mirrored by other central banks and governments in the UK, in the United States, under Trump, by the way, and in Canada. So you just know what's happening. And then this is just kind of funny, really. Sign of the times, surprising new indicator of BC's sluggish real estate market, the money laundering capital of Canada, BC and Vancouver. So there are many listings right now in the Metro Vancouver area that there's not enough signposts for. The company is actually offering, if we take down the signpost, if it's an already sold property, and give the signpost back so that they can use it for a new client, they will give us the money back on our next signpost. So it just goes to see they're running out of signs. They're running out of signs, guys, that there is so many listings in the Vancouver area, which is, again, these are these places that were never meant to go down. I mean, these are just the booming places. It doesn't matter what it is. It was foreign investment, then it was immigration, then it was a full moon every couple of months. You know, whatever it was. I'm just joking around there with the last one. But there's always a story, quite frankly, and it's never really getting to the dynamic of what's going on in the market, because markets are very complex. So this guy says that there were more than 15,000 listings in the Greater Vancouver area in April. I mean, condos don't always have signs and stuff, but buyers, they're just not showing up. They're a little bit uncertain with everything that's going on and kind of taking a little more time to look. And that's showing the economy just in general, really, is that people are just very uncertain at the moment about what's happening. They're seeing a lot of layoffs. People know people have been laid off. You're seeing people leaving because that's going to happen. Obviously, when you've got a high amount of immigration, then you have a bad labor market. A lot of people do not have the support networks that people have in Canada who were born in Canada have. So you basically see an exodus of people out, and that's definitely what you're going to see with the article we covered last week about 2 million people that are leaving. And that just goes to show again. And, you know, the Chinese economy and the Chinese property market, again, is still very sluggish and not in a good way. And obviously, the Chinese property market heavily influences the British Columbia property market. Vancouver is essentially just an extension of Hong Kong and an extension of Hong Kong money laundering as well. So it's just absolutely crazy. And I have to bring this up again because it just shows really what's going on, the financial situation. And I can't believe that this actually came from the CMHC, which is the government. And this was the Mortgage Consumer Survey, but 17% missed a payment. So just think about the stress that is mounting within the banking system that people aren't talking about. And we discussed the other day about how many loan loss provisions these banks have. And even Warren AI knew that, hey, these don't look good. But this is the hilarious thing, is even the AI model is thinking, what's going on here? Whilst these provisions look prudent, Canadian banks' ratios are still below the stress levels seen during previous crises. Think of it as raincoat weather, not batten down the hatches yet. With aggregate delinquency rates creeping up, and it says in brackets 4.3% of outstanding debt in Q1 2025, especially in student loans, the risk of a downpour is real, and AI is analyzing it without emotion. So you know that, yeah, things are pretty bad at these banks when they don't have the amount of loan loss provisions they need, when you consider how much defaults are really rising. So it is kind of crazy. And then obviously the top three reasons for concern: cost of living, job loss or reduced income, increase in interest rates, which is interesting because, you know, that has fell down to third now, and probably a couple of years ago that would have been second. So now you've got the cost of living increases. But I thought inflation came down. I mean, that is what the mainstream media keeps telling me. Inflation is down, everybody. There is nothing to fear. But the reality is inflation is still eating people alive, and wage growth is not keeping pace with it. So the reality is real incomes are going down, and that's the thing that people don't understand or don't realize. That's why we talk about real incomes, we talk about real prices, and we talk about real economic data instead of this fake that we get from the government and from other sources that is just really to look at a trend. I mean, who gives a shit about the Bank of Canada when they get everything wrong and they're totally behind? But everybody looks and quotes the Bank of Canada. I just don't get it. But anyways, and then you basically got Canadian first-time home buyers rely on non-mortgage debt and gifts. So this is interesting for a couple of reasons, because obviously with the economy and sentiment that has changed significantly, you're going to see people who are less enticed, who are less likely to give financial gifts, which then spills into the housing market with buyers, because that's the reality of where people were getting down payments during the pandemic, which people don't understand. And I have to say, these figures, they're not even really accurate, because a lot of these gifts are actually money laundering and things like that. So there's a large chunk of it that is probably money laundering as well that kind of filters into this. So you have to be aware of that. But obviously a lot of the people, first-time home buyers coming into the market that you would want if you were trying to sell your property, they're not coming. And the sentiment that's changed in the economy, I mean, that's a reflection of that. But the fact is, people don't care about interest rates as much as they used to. Interest rates have come down, and everybody was saying, oh, when interest rates come down, the economy will boom. It will just be a miracle. The Bank of Canada still thinks that. They still think that if they just cut rates, the economy is just going to rip. And I'm sure a lot of mortgage brokers and realtors think the same thing, because they just don't understand sentiment is the biggest driver. So after earning a master's in engineering, 5 years in Canada, R&D lab, and 500 CVs with no bite, a French engineer fled to Paris in days. Canada's land of opportunity chews up talent and spits it out across the ocean. Brain drain is our deadliest export. Loads of people are leaving Canada. There is a huge brain drain. I mean, I know many of my friends who have left Canada, and I know many people, because I hear from you all the time, who have also left Canada. And it just goes to show how bad it really is in Canada. And you know, this guy went to Paris, which is a complete hole now, but still he's going back there because his family's there and his support network's there as well. So it really goes to show what's going on here, and you're going to continually see that more and more with immigrants. And that's what people don't realize. With 2 million visas that are going to be expiring, those people are going to be gone. And again, that's just more downward pressure that is going to go onto the housing market, and we'll see. So anyway, guys, and if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video here. If you've enjoyed this video and want to help support the channel, then check out ExpressVPN, link in the description, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.